Older generations are living proof that younger generations can survive their lunacy.
Did you just make that up?
No, that's a quote from listener of the show, Colin Hightower. And we are living proof that you are alive right at this very second, listening to Tennis Podcast. Hello and welcome to the 242nd episode of Tennis Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Emel. Each week, me and one of my rotating panel of guest sidekick hosts discuss a new top tennis list, along with fun facts, trivia, and hot takes. Today, I'm joined by a generational beauty, the one and only Alex Johns. Alex?
Happy to be here, as always. Listeners, I'll just have you know that Nick texted me earlier this week and said this episode is going to have me ranting like a motherfucker. So excited to see what he has.
That's a quote.
I've been practicing my Zen, my meditation. I promise to be as even, level-headed as possible. There will be no ranting today, I promise you.
Okay, I'll take that bet. But I'm going to rant too. It's okay. But Alex, first, how was your Thanksgiving that happened in the past?
Oh, yeah, the Thanksgiving that happened in the past, definitely.
Already happened.
What's today?
November 29th.
November 29th.
Obviously,
yeah, so Thanksgiving was great. I'm sure I ate a lot of turkey, I guess.
God, you're really bad at this.
Yeah.
Okay, Alex, I dropped so many hints at the top of this episode. Let me read you that quote one more time.
Okay.
Older generations are living proof that younger generations can survive their lunacy. What do you think about that quote? What's your takeaway from that quote?
That this episode is going to be about fucking boomers. That I promise I will not be ranting about.
Okay. Today, Alex, you're going to be guessing the top 7. This is the 10-ish podcast. So the 7 largest generations. You look so confused, and stop looking so confused.
Largest generations.
Basically, boomers is one, baby boomers.
Okay.
What are we? What generation are we?
We're millennials.
Yep, you're right. We are.
Yeah.
Then there's a few other well-known ones. You're going to guess those that have had the most amount of births in their generation.
Okay.
And this goes back to the oldest generation that still has a living member today, which is 7 back. Okay?
Okay.
And if you're listening, listener, you might be asking, what is a generation? Well, it refers to all the people born and living at about the same time regarded collectively. It can also be described as the average period generally considered to be about 20 to 30 years during which children are born and grow up, become adults, and begin to have children. My sources today are Statista, Pew Research, the United States Census, GenHQ.com, Business Insider, and Wikipedia. Wikipedia says that the idea of a social generation has a long history and can be found in ancient literature, but did not gain currency in the sense that it is used today until the 19th century. Prior to that, the concept generation had generally referred to family relationships and not broader social groupings. But in 1863, French I've never heard this word, lexicographer Emile Lettre had defined a generation as, quote, all people coexisting in society at any given time. Now, there is no official commission or group that decides what each generation is called and when it starts and ends. Instead, different names and birth year cutoffs are proposed, and through a somewhat haphazard process, a consensus slowly develops in the media and popular science. This list is ranked by total reported U.S. births for each generation. These generations are also well known throughout the Western world. They're not just American only, but all of the data and research facts is all U.S. based today. The data comes from the U.S. Census Bureau with insights from Pew Research Center as of 2019. We are looking specifically at generations as recognized in the Western world that still have living members alive today. The earliest generation on this list that had members born was the generation between 1901 and 1927.
That's called the silent generation, right? Or is that before silent?
That's before silent.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm. The start of the first generation on the list is 1901, and we're going to guess all the way to today, the generation that's currently
okay. So
today.
It's total births. It's not total living members.
Correct.
Okay.
In America.
In America. Got it.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? Are you excited? Are you pumped?
Yeah. Let's talk about some fucking old people. Respectfully,
Yeah.
of course.
And young people.
Yeah. Yeah.
All kinds of people. Dead people.
Dead people. Alive people. Yeah. You ready for some guesses?
Yeah.
So I'm going to
try to save number 1.
Yeah, we'll save number 1. I think I know what number 1 is. I think everyone knows what number 1 is.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe they'll be surprised. I'm not sure. My first guess was I assumed the silent generation would have been the lowest on the list, number 7. But now that I know there's an older generation, that may not be the case. So show me where the silent generation is.
The silent generation is the smallest outside of the current.
Okay.
The silent generation is the sixth. So again, we have 7 here. The sixth largest generation that still has living members alive today. The generally accepted year range, this varies depending on your source, but the most generally considered range is 1928 to 1945. This is the generation immediately preceding Alex's favorite, the baby boomers.
Fuck them.
There were 47 million births in the United States that are considered a part of this generation. Today, current living members of this generation make up about 5% of the U.S. population.
So yeah, silent generation.
Have you ever wondered why they're called that?
Yeah, I think I read somewhere it's just because like their mentality was like, yeah, they never complained, they never, they just shut up and they went to work. They lived through both world wars, the Great Depression, like a bunch of hard things going on. And they kind of are characteristically known as like they wanted to build a better future for their kids, the baby boomers, which they did. They absolutely did. And then the baby boomers fucked it all up. But we'll get to that later.
I was waiting to see how long it would take for you
Not
to
ranting,
add that.
respectfully.
Respectfully, yeah. The baby boomers fucked up so much. We're going to get to them. But yes, you pretty much nailed it. The term came first from Time magazine, who first used the term in a November 5th, 1951 article. They said, the most startling fact about this younger generation is its silence. It does not issue manifestos, make speeches, or carry posters. It has been called the silent generation. So what you said, but I'd add to that, they weren't looking to disrupt like the status quo in society, like say some of the other generations we'll talk about.
Right.
And you hit on a lot of the key facts. They lived through the Great Depression in the 30s, World War II, and they missed World War I though.
Oh, they did? Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, because this started in 1928. And because of World War II and the Great Depression, this caused fewer people at the time to have children, which is why this generation is so small relative to others. From their childhood experiences during the Depression and the example of frugality set by their parents because of the Depression, they're called silence, the silent generation. Silence tended to be thrifty and even miserly, preferring to maximize a product's lifespan, i.e., get their money's worth. This led some members of the silent generation to develop hoarding behaviors in the guise of not being wasteful. That definitely applies to my fucking grandparents, who are a part of this generation.
Yeah. Did you know that Joe Biden is the only U.S. president to have been part of the silent generation?
I think you're right. I have a note about a different president, but not this generation. So yeah, I think you're right. Joe Biden.
Think I'd fucking lie to you?
No, of course not. You would never lie to me.
Never.
Before reaching their teens, they shared with their parents the horrors of World War II, but they did it through children's eyes. Upon coming of age in the post-war era, silence were sometimes characterized by trending towards conformity and traditionalism, as well as comprising the silent majority. Unlike the previous generation who had fought for changing the system, the silent generation was about working within the system. They did this by keeping their heads down and working hard, thus earning themselves the silent label. Their attitudes leaned toward not being risk takers and playing it safe. Alex, do you fit with that? Would you be a good member of the silent generation?
I don't really, as much as I like to talk shit, I don't really like to rock the boat.
Because you're all talk.
Yeah, I really am all talk, all bark and no bite. So, yeah, I could fit there.
Yeah. Okay, so you love kissing the ass of the man. Got it. And doing whatever he says. Cool.
I don't love it. I can do it. I can handle it.
You can do it.
Yeah.
Okay. However, the silent generation, they've been noted as forming the leadership of the civil rights movement in the 1960s counterculture and creating the rock and roll music of the 50s and 60s. So they weren't all silent. As with their own parents, silents tended to marry and have children young. American silents are noted as being the youngest of all living American generations in the age of marriage and parenthood. In other words, people from this generation got married younger than any other generation. As young parents, the older members of this generation primarily produced the later baby boomers, whom we love and respect.
Mm-hmm.
Key events that shaped the lives of this generation. During the formative years of this generation, they experienced World War II, the Korean War, the Civil Rights Movement, the Second Red Scare. And for each generation, I have notable people from that generation. Harrison Ford, silent generation. His ass is old.
He's an old fucker.
Let's just call it.
Yeah.
He's an old fucker. I mean, he's in his 80s for sure.
Yeah.
And it just did Indiana Jones. God bless him. Jane Fonda, Jimi Hendrix, Mr. Rogers. All members of the silent generation, and a couple tens of millions of others.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are some
good company.
Yeah. So, Alex, we know that you would bend over for the man and be part of the silent generation. Is there another generation that might be the opposite of that?
I mean, I would guess the opposite of that would probably be Gen Z, right?
I'll accept that. Gen Z, where do you think it is on the list?
So, I was going to guess Gen Z would be probably like number 3.
Final answer?
Final answer.
Can you submit your 2 weeks notice? Let my assistant know when your last day
Are you
will be.
firing me without my union rep present? Call Dr. Buster right now. I can't talk to you anymore.
Can you imagine being represented by that booty and as a union rep?
All right,
Gen Z is number 2.
Number two. Oh, fuck.
You didn't give them enough credit. These are some bitches that were born between 1997 and 2012, which is only a 15-year period, which is a smaller gap than typical.
Yeah, these gaps like don't always make sense, I feel like, but whatever.
No, they don't. 97 to 2012. These are people that, let's see, if you're born in 97, what are you now? Like 26? So you're as old as 26 and as young as 11 when you're listening to this.
Yeah.
There's 69 million people born in this generation in the United States, and it makes up about 21% of the U.S. population today. Gen Z is about 51% white, 14% black, 25% Hispanic, 5% Asian for those keeping score.
Oh, that's interesting.
What?
It'll be interesting to see how demographics shift based on generation.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
well,
I'll keep that in the back of my mind.
The newer the generation, the more diversified it is.
Good.
Yeah. As the first social generation to have grown up with access to the internet and portable technology, digital technology from a young age, members of Gen Z have been dubbed digital natives. So Alex, you and I are millennials. We were right in that middle point where we had the old ways before us, and then the internet and technology and cell phones came after, like our teen years. Whereas Gen Z, they were born into this shit.
Yeah, what's interesting about that is like us, like we knew a time without the internet and without, all that crazy stuff. But we kind of were in our formative...
We were the last generation to do that.
Yeah, we were in our formative years when it started coming up. So it was kind of natural to us, and not natural, but like we picked it up fast, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas like our parents struggled with adapting the new technology. Whereas Gen Z, yeah, they are the first generation to be born and everything like already exists, right? Internet's already there.
Yeah.
So they don't know a life without it, which is really interesting.
It is. I remember even me, myself, because, well, like when I was a kid, there were no iPhones,
Yep.
There was no GPS in your phone and all that. I remember printing out MapQuest and stuff when I started driving.
MapQuest is the only one that would give you like turn-by-turn directions of your route or whatever on paper that you're fucking holding up.
Mm-hmm. I can't imagine driving with just a map, like an old school map. I've never done that.
I'll fucking never forget when I was in like college, right? So like, iPhones had been out for a few years at that point. My mom comes to visit me at college and fucking shows up with her like printed out MapQuest papers. I'm like, Mom, you can do this on your phone now.
And that was 15 years ago or whatever.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So just, these Gen Zers are really looking at us like we're old to them.
We are
Alex.
fucking
We're
old, man. When did this happen?
Just overnight.
I remember when all the boomers would complain about the damn millennials, and fuck, us damn millennials are having back problems and knee replacements at this point. Like, damn.
I don't know about knee replacements, but yes. People always told me that it hits you in your 30s, and by God, they're not lying.
Yeah.
Like pretty much the day I turned 30, my body started going to shit.
It's all downhill from here.
It really is. And it's amazing how short. Human life is already short. It's just the blink of an eye in the grand scheme of things. Not even a blink of an eye. But you take that blink of an eye and you cut it in half because only a small window of your living days are actually like your prime physical,
right?
Age 13 to 29, or probably not even that, 22 or something. Yeah, it's just God
wild.
works in mysterious ways.
Like one day I'm just sitting there pounding beers like it's nothing, and now I'm fucking
pounding who?
Gotta drink my fucking Metamucil or else I can't fucking shit right, It's just time just catches up with you.
Time. And you know what they say about time? It flies by when you're having
A good time, I guess. I don't know what that's
fun.
like, though.
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Never had fun
Yeah.
ever.
Anyway,
hope to
tell me
do
more
that
about
someday.
Gen Z. I like this generation, by the way.
Okay, creeper alert. Compared to previous generations, the members of Gen Z tend to live more slowly than their predecessors when they were their age. They have lower rates of teenage pregnancies. They consume less alcohol. They do drugs less often. Interesting, right?
That is interesting. I kind of assumed it would have been opposite.
Yeah, I think so too. But a lot of it is the digital side, which we'll
Yeah.
get more into. Globally, there is evidence that the average age of pubertal onset among girls has decreased considerably compared to prior generations. Additionally, the prevalence of allergies among adolescents and young adults in Gen Z is greater than the general population. There is greater awareness and diagnosis of mental health conditions, and sleep deprivation is more frequently reported. So this generation is just much more aware of every aspect of their health.
Okay, so with the mental health, that makes sense, right? Like back in the day, that wasn't top of mind. So if like, say, for example, someone is a little hyperactive at school, their parents are just gonna be like, oh, he's just a hyperactive boy. And, you know, he may have ADHD, but like, they're not going to go get him diagnosed with that, right? Whereas these days, it's more kind of mainstream to understand that there may be something else wrong there. I wonder if that's also
You're
the
right
case.
or wrong.
No?
I'm sorry. Well, I think you are right. However, with one difference being that, like, I was diagnosed with ADHD and they threw Ritalin at me. You know, I
Yeah.
think it was common back then to just either A, do what you said, he's just an active kid, he'll get over it, or B, throw some medicine at him. Where now it's much more, let's understand the root of the problem, let's talk about
Right.
therapy, let's talk about like the way the brain works, let's not just throw medicine at the problem. Although, of course, that still happens.
Yeah.
But
I think there's also a sense of like, even with a diagnosis, you wouldn't just throw medicine at the problem anymore. There's more understanding of it nowadays to more effectively live
Yeah.
with it rather than, again, just throw medicine at the problem. But what I was getting at is that I wonder if there's also a component of that with like, you mentioned they have higher rates of allergies and stuff like that. And I wonder if like back in the day, it was just like oh, so-and-so feels like shit whenever they drink milk. I guess that's just how they are, you know, rather than like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe they're lactose intolerant or maybe they're allergic to this or that. So I don't know.
I think it is a lot of that. I think a large part of this is they're just being diagnosed more often
Yeah.
than in the past.
Yeah.
So therefore, it makes it seem like they're more susceptible when in reality there's more reported.
Right.
You know? But Alex, do you know of a medicine or a treatment that I can talk to get Dr. Buster to leave me alone?
If you figure it out, let me know.
Okay.
I've been working on this for years.
Yeah, top scientists are working on it.
Yeah.
All right, around the world, members of Gen Z are spending more time on electronic devices and less time reading books than before, with implications for their attention spans, vocabulary, academic performance, and future economic contributions.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. Are you worried about that?
Okay. You're right. I am talking to a social and humanities doctorate.
Well, here's the
expert
thing.
here.
Like, I don't know. These days, it's all like, oh, those kids in their damn phones. Back when we were kids, it's those kids in their damn video games. And back in, Gen X is probably those kids in this damn after school TV program. Like every generation has something they're going to point at their kid. I mean, back in the 1920s, it was probably, oh, those kids in their damn newspapers, like.
What do you think it was in like the medieval times?
Fucking those kids in their damn couple of rocks and a stick that they throw on at each other while they're mid fucking dropping drawers and fucking shitting in the streets.
I knew you were gonna say it. Thank you. No, that's the parents are on next to each other on the communal wall that they shit off of, and they're talking to each other about their damn kids and their rocks.
The communal cesspit.
Those kids in their damn sticks and rocks.
Kids in their damn cesspit. Back in my day, we just shat in the house.
Oh, God. As consumers, Alex, members of Gen Z, tell me if you still like Gen Z after this. Members of Gen Z are typically reliant on the internet to research their options and place orders. Okay, I'm there too.
Yeah, same.
They tend to be skeptical and will shun firms whose actions and values are contradictory. Their purchases are heavily influenced by trends promoted by influencers on social media, as well as the fear of missing out or FOMO and peer pressure. The need to be trendy is a prime motivator. And I can just hear the as Dr. Buster shakes his head listening to this episode, because nothing pisses him off more than people being influenced.
Yeah,
to buy
I
something.
also hate the fucking influencer economy. It's strong though. I just think that has to do with that parasocial relationship that social media inspires. I don't know. I could fucking get on a rant, but I told you I'm not ranting today.
We'll get you there. But you could think of like even Taylor Swift. People don't think of Taylor Swift as an influencer
I do.
in the way. Well, it goes both ways because she's not an influencer in the way that that's like her living, right? She's an influencer though in that if she tells people to vote at a concert, suddenly there's a huge spike in voting registration. So I think influencers have always
fucking stupid controversy too. Like, oh, sorry, I told you I'm not going to rant today.
He's going. No, go ahead. Go.
But all she fucking did was stand up and tell people to vote. It's not like she's going and telling people who to vote for.
She didn't tell them how to vote, right?
She didn't tell them how to vote. She's just telling them to fucking vote. Just a public service announcement. There's an election coming up. Maybe you should vote.
And guess who got mad? The fucking Republicans took it as an attack because they know that if there's more people voting, then they will get voted out.
Yeah. Oh, it's so fucking stupid.
But we're not ranting today, Alex.
No, we're not ranting today. Respectfully.
In the West, Gen Z is the least religious generation in human history. In the United States, Generation Z has twice as many self-identified atheists as prior generations.
Hell yeah.
So that's something.
Yeah.
Do you think that the boomers would respect and appreciate the amount of devil worship that goes on in Gen Z? Do you think it's because they don't let them pray in school anymore?
That's got to be it. They just let them pray in school and their numbers wouldn't drop like this.
Yeah. The devil couldn't get his thingies in there. Okay. Sociologists Judith Trays and Julia M. Dottie-Sani, listeners of the show, they analyzed the diaries of over 122,000 parents. This is crazy. And discovered that in general, parents had been spending more and more time with their children. In 1965, which would have been the boomer generation, a mother spent, actually that's the first year of Gen X, a mother spent on average 54 minutes or nearly an hour on childcare activities per day. Whereas in 2012, it's twice as much, 104 minutes or almost 2 hours. But for fathers, the amount of time fathers spent with their kids on child-related activities in 1965 was 16 minutes.
God.
And that's because, you got to know the research is skewed because 1 and 2 kids, their fathers had abandoned them already, right? 59 minutes in 2012, though. So as the generations go on, parents are putting more and more focus being with their kids.
I like the trend that like each generation is a better generation to their kids than the last, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the compounding generational trauma, breaking it down one generation at a time until eventually you've got some good parents that can raise a good kid, at least hopefully.
It's like evolution of parenting.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Some key events that happened in the formative years of Gen Zers. You have the aftermath of 9/11. So everything that came because of 9/11.
Yeah, I was going to say, most of them weren't even fucking alive, right?
No, they weren't. Well, I mean, 97 is the earliest year,
okay,
so some of them could have been 4 years old.
But none of them remember.
They don't remember it, but they lived in the aftermath. So the restrictions on travel and, the terrorism being a thing.
TSA still being a thing, I fucking hate TSA. Sorry, not ranting today.
It sounds like you might want to rant, though. Did you want to say anything about it?
It's fucking security theater. I think I've talked about this on this show before. They don't know what to do if they fucking catch the terrorists. It's all just theater to make you think that you're safe and protected, and all it does is just waste your time at the airport. Oh, I fucking hate
frustrate the fuck out of you.
It's so frustrating, yeah. It's like arbitrary rules, like, 3.5 ounces on my little fucking bottle of mouthwash, and if you go over that, you got to throw the whole thing away. It's fucking stupid.
Let's not forget that last I heard, maybe it's changed, but last I heard, TSA has stopped how many terrorists? How many terrorists have they stopped? 0.
Yeah.
They have a 0%.
They wouldn't know what to do if they caught one. They fucking thrown away enough bottles of mouthwash and toothpaste, though, to...
To be fair, I was in line at TSA one time, and a terrorist, got stopped because they wouldn't let him take his toothpaste through.
Oh, yeah.
Because he had been planning on using that toothpaste to squirt at the flight attendants on the plane.
He was going to brush their teeth a little too hard, They
bleeding gums,
They had sensitive teeth, and he wasn't going to use Sensodyne.
God. TSA is a joke. No offense to any TSA employees.
I even fucking have pre-check, and...
Me too.
everyone has pre-check these days. Like the pre-check line sometimes is longer than the regular ass line.
Because you're right. Like secret's out on pre-check.
Yeah.
Almost every airport I go to, the pre-check line, it's usually not as long as the main line, but it's still long. Like it used to be, you just walk right through.
Exactly.
Now it's like you're in a line. So there's just too many people.
Anyway, we don't have to talk about the repercussions of fucking 9/11 and how it ruined this country again.
Other key events in the formative years of Gen Zers, you had the recession of 2008.
Yeah.
And they're kids during this time, but this is how they're like learning about the economy.
Mm-hmm.
School shootings becoming an everyday thing, basically.
God, I couldn't imagine.
They lived through the election of Donald Trump, the police brutality and protests and rioting that went on with George Floyd, COVID-19, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, we all lived through COVID-19. Well, unless you're dead. If you're fucking dead, you didn't live through COVID-19. But
if you're fucking dead, just unsubscribe.
Just unsubscribe. No. We've been through this. Didn't we talk about this before? We want to put earphones in every casket before it goes in the ground, right?
Yeah.
Get our download numbers up.
Yeah,
that should be part of the preparation at the funeral homes when they're getting the body ready for the funeral.
Yep.
Got the suit on, get their face right,
Yep.
Do all the shit they do.
Then you just pop the AirPods
Sticks in earphones. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Just put it on episode 1 of 10-inch podcast and just let it play. And then set a loop. When they get through all 242 episodes, it just starts again at the number 1, goes on through.
Should probably start with episode 2.
Yeah, you're probably right. 1's pretty bad. Thanks, Alex. Some notable Gen Zers. We got Billie Eilish.
Oh, yeah.
Ryan from Ryan's World. You probably don't even know what that is because you don't
Who
have
the
kids.
fuck is that? Oh, is he the toy review kid?
He's a toy review kid.
Wasn't he fucking like exploited by his parents as a young age? I have so much fear, so many mixed feelings about like these kids under 10 that are like being shown to social media.
As someone with kids that watches this shit, it's like this whole corner of the world now that's like
yeah. I don't know. Like my wife sends me like there's this couple she follows on Instagram that's like has cute kids that do cute things and she sends me reels here and there and I'm just like it's cute, yeah, but like this little girl doesn't have the mental capability to like consent to having her likeness spread to millions of followers. It seems weird to me.
She's not getting the money either.
Yeah. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings. I don't think I want my kids to be all over social media when I have them, but
yeah, but if you had a contract sitting in front of you to do so and it was worth like $50 million, you might reconsider.
Yeah, but I'm already getting $50 million from the 10-inch podcast, so.
True. That's true.
Yeah.
And if you want to contribute to Alex's $50 million, sign up for 10-inch pod plus at 10inchpod.com/PLUS.
Yeah, my union rep, Dr. Buster, really negotiated that for me, so thanks, Buster.
He really didn't have to do much. We didn't have a verbal negotiation. He didn't write a figure on a piece of paper and pass it to me like when you're negotiating. Instead, he just dropped the pants, started booty clapping, and
that's all it takes.
I couldn't say no.
Best union rep ever.
I was mesmerized. 2 more notable Gen Zers are Greta Thunberg and my dog, Mr. Muffy, also born.
Oh, Mr. Muffy's a Gen Z.
He's a Gen Zer, born in 2010.
Yeah, old boy.
All right. So you have Gen Z at number 2 and the silent generation at number 6.
All right, show me the oldest generation on the block. I'm going to guess they're number 5, and I think they're called the greatest generation.
The greatest generation. What number?
5?
5. Look at you. These motherfuckers were born in 1901 to 1927. 63 million births in this generation, but alive today, 0.2% of the current living population. Greatest gens. Because to be in this generation, you basically have to be 96 years or older.
Fucking old.
Yeah, fucking old. That's how old. An early usage of the term the greatest generation was in 1953 by U.S. Army General James Van Fleet, who had recently retired after his service in World War II. He spoke to Congress saying, "The men of the 8th Army are a magnificent lot, and I have always said the greatest generations of Americans we have ever produced." The term was further popularized by the title of a 1998 book by journalist Tom Brokaw. In the book, he described American members of this generation who came of age during the Great Depression and went on to fight in World War II, many of them voluntarily, as well as those who contributed to the war effort on the home front. He wrote that these men and women fought not for fame or recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. How many social media influencers do you think would sign up to fight in the war?
Not very many.
I don't know. Think of the Insta stories and TikToks they could
Think
do
of the
from out there
clout.
on the front lines. Yeah. In the United States, these people were born during the Progressive Era, or World War I, or the Roaring Twenties, a time of economic prosperity with distinctive cultural transformations. They experienced much of their youth with rapid technological innovation, the radio, the telephone, the automobile, amidst growing levels of worldwide income, inequality, and a soaring economy.
What is the Progressive Era?
I don't fucking know.
All right.
Sounded familiar. I don't know what it is.
Cool. I'm just curious.
I think that's the era when when Flo and her friends from the insurance company
Oh, yeah.
were first imagined. You think that might be it?
What a fucking job she has. All she has to do is be fucking Flo forever. I mean, she's been Flo for what, 20 years at this point, I feel like?
Something close like that, yeah.
Yeah. Her and the AT&T girl, they've just fucking got their jobs on lock for life.
Kind of like he didn't last nearly, well, Jared from Subway was one, but he turned out to be a fucking creepo pedophile, but he had the same kind of gig. And then the Verizon guy that said, "Can you hear me now?"
Oh, yeah. Whatever happened to that guy?
He didn't last nearly as long, but for a while there, what a gig.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me about the Greatest Generation is much like you and I were talking about with Millennials, where we experienced the before and the after of the internet and smartphones, DVDs even, streaming. These guys in the Greatest Generation, they were there before and after cars, phones,
Crazy.
radio, right?
Yeah.
Imagine being born and you were taken home from, well, you probably didn't even go to the hospital. You were probably born in your house. But let's say you're a baby and you go somewhere on a horse and buggy. And by the time you're, 16, you're riding around in a Model T.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
If you think about it, the long term, like we literally have the entire universe of information in our pockets at this point, whereas before we didn't. So like, I don't know. When you think about like no car to car versus information you have to go to a library to find to information I just type in some words in a little brick in my pocket, I feel like that's a bigger leap, but I see your point.
Maybe. Think about it. Let's explore this for a minute. What's been a more important, crucial development for human society? The car or the internet?
Okay.
Obviously, the internet, so much comes with the internet because the internet allows us to do things. It's not just looking up who played this in such and such movie. It's also the internet allows us to work remotely. It allows us to do this podcast right now. It allows us to do all kinds of things. Car doesn't do all that. But without the car, we would not be as well traveled as we are now. People would
without
still be.
The car, our cities would be better designed. We wouldn't.
Oh, here we go.
Go back to the fucking walkable cities episode if you want to hear this.
I remember now.
But fucking like cars are fine, sure. But like we designed our cities around cars, and anyway, just go back to that episode. I'm not going to get into this rant today. I told you we're not ranting today.
Okay, so let's talk about the stock market crashing then. When many had matured in the 30s, this generation experienced profound economic and social turmoil. So even though the stock market crash happened after the Greatest Generation ended, because the last year to be born in the Greatest Generation was 1927, stock market crash in 1929. That said, these people were teenagers or adults during the stock market crash. And so despite the hardships, historians note that the literature, arts, music, and cinema of the period flourished. This generation experienced what is commonly referred to as the golden age of Hollywood. A number of popular film genres, including gangsta films, musical films, comedy films, and monster films, attracted mass audiences. The Great Depression also greatly influenced literature and witnessed the advent of comic books, which were popular with members of this generation, such as The Shadow, Superman, Batman. Those were all created during the Greatest Generation. Then you had jazz, blues, gospel music, folk music, all became really popular in this time period. So a lot of cultural things happening as far as media, music. And over 16 million Americans served in World War II, the majority of those being adults that were born in the Greatest Generation.
When you learned about the Great Depression in school and everything, I always had this thought of mine that like literally like the entire population was out of work.
Yeah, same.
You were talking like 80+% unemployment rate or something like that. But I don't know, you've seen like graphs of like unemployment rate by time. It only ever peaked at like 25%, which is still crazy. Of like a 25% unemployment rate, but like not nearly as crazy as everyone made it out to be. Like I feel like 2008 probably saw similar levels, not quite that high, but close enough,
So what you're saying is anyone who lived during the Great Depression needs to just stop their bitching. It wasn't that bad.
Just pull yourselves up by your bootstraps.
There you go.
I don't know. I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm sure it was bad.
I agree. Yeah.
But
because I used to think of it as like everyone's living on dirt roads and they're walking to the well to get water and they don't have work and they're all sharing like one bean split 5 ways, like in that Mickey Mouse movie for dinner every night. That's kind of what I thought too.
Right.
So, other key events of this period were World War I, World War II, the Spanish flu pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a much bigger fucking kick in the gut than even COVID was. The Prohibition, the Dust Bowl. Some notable people from this generation are Jimmy Carter. He's the only president still alive from this generation. Marlon Brando, Bonnie and Clyde, Mickey Mouse.
We had 7 presidents from the Greatest Generation. And I believe that's the most presidents of any generation.
Well, were they, maybe they were, I honestly don't know. Were they naming generations prior, like in the 17 and 1800s, you know?
So I see that the last generation of the 1800s is called the Lost Generation, but I've not seen any names before that.
Are you telling me you're sitting here cheating, looking at generations on your computer right now?
I'm just looking at presidents because I thought it was a fun. I've got a chart of like each generation.
I'm sorry, am I boring you? The information I'm giving you isn't interesting enough. You need to do other side quests during my.
I have to do your research for you because your lists are so shit. But anyway, 7 presidents. I got their pictures, but I don't have their names. And honestly, I don't know. I probably couldn't name all these guys. There's Reagan. There's Nixon. And Jimmy Carter. I think that's Lyndon B. Johnson. I don't know. There's a 7.
You don't know what LBJ looks like?
No, I don't know. Do you?
If you don't get your head out of your ass, I'm going to come over there and give you an LBJ right now.
A little butt job?
Little butt job. Let's talk about another generation, please.
Yeah? Okay. So we've got greatest, we've got silent, we've got Gen Z. Let's talk about the young bucks, the current generation, Generation Alpha.
Okay, I didn't know if you knew that one. Generation Alpha. Well, it's probably because you're cheating on your computer. I forgot.
I know everything.
Generation Alpha is the 7th on this list. It might end up being bigger someday, but because it's so new, it's the smallest on here. 27 million and growing, born in this time period. It's anyone born 2013 and plus. This generation has not ended yet. This makes up about 8% of the current U.S. population. It's named after Alpha, the first letter in the Greek alphabet. It is the first to be born entirely in the 21st century and the 3rd millennium. Generation Alpha has been born at a time of falling fertility rates across much of the world and are experiencing the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic as young children. Because even the oldest Gen Alpha kid is 10.
Yeah.
For those with access, children's entertainment has been increasingly dominated by electronic technology, social networks, and streaming services, with interest in traditional television concurrently falling. It's hard to even imagine like a 10-year-old today even understanding what cable or regular TV
like,
is.
Remember Saturday morning cartoons? And now it's just like every morning cartoons.
Yeah, just whenever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
That happened to me on a trip. I was with my kids in a hotel room and we were watching something on like cable and they wanted me to pause it. And I said, I can't. It doesn't pause. They just could not grasp that concept. Yeah. It's just wild.
Yeah.
Or sometimes, this is like semi-related, but my kids will ask me like if the camera had been invented yet when I was born. Fucking idiot kids. All right. Changes in the use of technology in classrooms and other aspects of life have had a significant effect on how this generation has experienced early learning compared to previous generations. And studies have suggested that allergies, obesity, and health problems related to screen time have become increasingly prevalent among children in recent years. But don't worry, Alex said he's not worried about the screen time thing with kids.
Hey, now.
Some key events for this gen: COVID-19, the Trump presidency, and all the millions of things that happened from that, the January 6th insurrection. Okay.
When does their generation stop? Like, what's like the cutoff year?
It doesn't. It has not been determined yet. All I know is it's 2013 and up.
Okay.
So if it's the generation before them, which was Z, had a 15-year period, and if they do the same thing, then that would put them ending at 2028.
Coming up.
Sure.
Be here before you know it.
Be here before you know it, by God. And Alex, before you have another guess, generations kind of fight. You know, we've been poking fun at the baby boomers. The baby boomers blame those damn millennials on being lazy.
Yeah.
There's one thing all generations can agree on, and that's that kitty cats are cute as hell. And I want you, listener, to join me and my lifelong friend Kent Smith on the latest Tennis Pod Plus exclusive bonus episode where we discuss the top 10 best movies starring a cat.
I like that. I'd like to guess on that. Why didn't you fucking invite me to that episode?
Because you're
you're too kitty cat lover.
Yeah, but you're not the only kitty cat lover in my life, Alex.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, you're not going to get a picture of Gretchen tonight like you normally would.
Oh, really? That's some bullshit. If I want a picture of your cat, I don't go to you. I go to Mrs. Johns because she's the one that will actually send me something.
I'm going to tell her to cut you off too.
No. She's
anyway,
Team Nick
sounds
on
fun.
this.
Can't wait to listen.
Yeah, and you can listen to this bonus episode right meow by signing up for a Tennis Pod Plus at tennispod.com/plus. There are also over 60 other bonus episodes you'll instantly unlock, as well as early and ad-free access to every episode of Tennis Podcast like the one you're listening to now. Go to tennispod.com/plus to sign up and get a free 7-day trial.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. All right, I think you just have 3 generations left.
I have 3 left, and we're going to talk about Gen X. And I'm going to guess they're number 4.
You nailed it. Generation X is number 4, sandwiched between the Greatest Generation and number 3 that you have not guessed yet. 1965 to 1980. That's actually another 15-year period there.
Yep.
55 million births in the U.S., and about 20% of the current U.S. population is from Gen X. For a few more years, Gen Xers are projected to remain the middle child of generations, caught between 2 larger generations, Millennials and the Boomers. As children in the 1970s and 1980s, a time of shifting societal values, Gen Xers were sometimes called the latchkey generation.
The latchkey. I was going to say that.
Which stems from their returning as children to an empty home and needing to use the door key. This was the result of an increasing divorce rates and increased maternal participation in the workforce. Moms were working more than they had been.
Yeah, it was like
previously.
the first generation where that was like commonplace.
Mm-hmm. The rapid influx of boomer women into the labor force that began in the 70s was marked by the confidence of many in their ability to successfully pursue a career while meeting the needs of their children. As adolescents and young adults in the 80s and 90s, Xers were dubbed the MTV generation, sometimes being characterized as slackers, cynical, and disaffected. Some of the many cultural influences on Gen X youth included a proliferation of musical genres with strong social tribal identities such as punk, post-punk, heavy metal. Now, this is interesting. We talked about iPhones and stuff, the internet being introduced for our generation, and cars for the Greatest Generation. For Gen Xers, it was video games.
Video games?
Generation X was the first generation in the West where video games were in the home as opposed to an arcade.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
That is cool. That's why I said it, Alex. Some older Gen Xers started high school in the waning years of the Carter presidency, but much of the cohort became socially and politically conscious during the Reagan era, Alex's favorite. President Ronald Reagan, voted in office principally by the boomer generation, embraced laissez-faire economics with vigor. The early 1980s recession saw unemployment rise to 10.8% in 1982, requiring, more often than not, dual parental incomes. 1 in 5 American children grew up in poverty during this time. The federal debt almost tripled during Reagan's time in office, from $998 billion in 1981 to $2.9 trillion in 1989, placing greater burden of repayment on the incoming generation.
Worst fucking thing to ever happen in this country.
He is like a Republican icon for some reason.
He is. I remember growing up in fucking Republican-loving Oklahoma, everyone revering Reagan. He's so great, best president we've ever had. And, you know, when you're a kid, you just kind of buy into what you hear. And then when you grow up and you start thinking for yourself and you see all the shit he did, you're just like, God, fuck that.
Yeah. But don't worry, because by the mid to late 90s, Bill Clinton, under his presidency, economic optimism had returned to the U.S., which is pretty much how it works, by the way. The Democratic president inherits the Republican president's debt and economic issues, starts to reverse them, and then they go back again to Republicans. Probably going to happen again when the Trump or whichever Republican takes the presidency in 2024. Let's not talk about it, though. Bill Clinton, during his presidency, unemployment reduced all the way to 4% in 2000. And younger members of Gen X, straddling across administrations, politically experienced a liberal renewal. They're more liberal.
Yeah.
In 2014, Pew Research described Gen X as savvy, skeptical, and self-reliant. They're not into preening or pampering, and they just might not give much of a hoot what others think of them, or whether others think of them at all. So you had the silent generation that kept their head down, didn't want to shake the status quo, just wanted to do their thing, just wanted to work within the system. Gen X, I wouldn't say the opposite, but kind of they're different, right? They weren't into the tradition, the norm.
I think Gen X is a really interesting. I mean, all these generations have interesting tidbits, but they're interesting in that, like, the baby boomers, they had it fucking made when they were in the workforce and we were like the prime working age, right? Like they all had pensions, they all had great paying jobs. When you look at like the inflation tracker, like what money back then would be worth today, fucking, one income could support an entire household kind of thing. And the Gen X, they kind of are half and half. Like half of them probably have pensions, half of them don't. Some of them are kind of grandfathered into great salaries from great companies. A lot of them, their wages probably just haven't kept up over time. And so Gen X is kind of the first generation to start getting fucked. And then obviously our generation, we're just completely fucked. And it's just going to get worse from there going forward. But
you know what a boomer would say if they were listening to us right now? And we do have some boomer listeners out there. We love you. You only, though.
Hopefully the boomers listening to you are a little more open-minded than the generality. And obviously,
if they're on episode 242 of 10ish Podcast and they're still listening, then they've probably gotten the picture by now on our opinions.
Right. But I just fucking hate like hearing, since we just fucking bought a house, right? And like the biggest one I hear from boomers is like, oh, back in my day, interest rates were like 13%. You should be lucky you get your 6.8% last summer. And I'm just like, yeah, but you could fucking buy a house with like a year's salary back in your day. Like the prices are fucking crazy these days.
Yep.
I don't know.
No, you're
anyway.
100%
I told you I'm not ranting today. So
no, and you haven't yet. Not even once.
No.
So some key events during the formative years of Gen Xers. You had the fall of the Berlin Wall.
When was that?
Late 80s, I think. 89 maybe. But other events, you had the Challenger disaster.
Oh, fuck, yeah. Do you know why that happened? Do you know why the Challenger ship exploded in sky? It was fucking unit conversions. People were using metric and people were using imperial, and they didn't fucking convert it right, and they built some shit wrong, and it blew up.
I'm sure someone could give me some reason somewhere, but why the fuck, maybe you know, why the fuck did America decide to do the metric system differently?
Well, we're not doing the metric system. That's
or you know what I mean. We're doing the...
Yeah. I don't know why.
Why don't we use the metric system?
A fucking American exceptionalism, right? We think we're fucking hot shit and best in the world, and stupid.
It's stupid. I don't get it. All right, the Jonestown mass suicide.
Is that like the Kool-Aid? Drink the Kool-Aid?
It was Flavor Aid, but yes. Rise of the personal computer.
Yeah.
Rodney King. LA riots.
Oh, okay.
The AIDS crisis.
Yeah.
The Oklahoma City bombing.
Yeah. Timothy McVeigh.
Mm-hmm.
He was executed on my birthday.
Was he?
June 11th. Shit. Don't wish me a happy birthday.
Okay. Do you want to give your social next? Your social security number?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh shit! Everyone writing this down?
You're gonna bleep that, right?
No, of course not. And of course, I had to throw this in there. The death of Kurt Cobain, the voice of Generation X.
Yeah.
Notable Gen Xers, you had Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Alex, that's all it took was the name.
Not even gonna fucking start.
We have Kenan Thompson of Kenan and Kel.
I like him.
Yeah,
he's been on Saturday Night Live for fucking 30 years at this point.
He fucking has.
Playing the same character he played 30 years ago. Does a great job at it.
Yeah, my parents love it.
Yeah.
And Vanilla Ice, also a Gen Xer.
Yeah. No U.S. presidents.
Is that right? I guess it is. Well,
yeah, Obama just missed it.
Okay.
Obama's a boomer.
Okay. Barely. Yeah. All right. Well, it's okay. Trump and Biden, they're two Gen Xers. They'll be fighting for the presidency in 24. It's a young man's game now.
Yeah.
All right. You just need 3 and 1.
All right. I'm going to guess number 3 is our fellow millennials.
That's us. We're almost exactly smack dab in the middle of the millennial tree at number 3. 1981 to 1996, Alex. There's 62 million births here and about 22% of the U.S. population today, which means it is the largest living generation in America.
Wait,
and I think on Earth as well. As
How
far
are
as
we the largest living generation when Gen Z is bigger than us?
Gen Z is big.
Did they all fucking get taken out by school shooters?
Let's see. Gen Z, it's 69 million people. Millennials had 62 million. Maybe it's adults. Maybe the percentage is adults.
Oh, well, that would make sense.
Yeah, that might be it. But just edit out you questioning me at all.
You didn't even laugh at my school shooter joke. I'm kind of disappointed.
Well, I thought about laughing, but then I had to answer your question, and then it was too late to laugh. So what
Fair.
should I do?
Okay.
Should I edit in a laugh, Alex?
Yeah. Give me a laugh track.
School shooters. Oh, they happen all the time. Woo. There's probably one happening right now. It's hilarious. Okay. According to the Brookings Institution, millennials are the demographic bridge between the largely white older generations, the premillennials, and much more racially diverse younger generations, the postmillennials. That's what I was talking about earlier.
Okay. So yeah, Gen Z was what, 51% white. How much percent white are we?
It doesn't say.
You got that?
I don't have it.
Damn.
But, you know,
some pretty shitty research today.
I don't see people by their color, Alex. So
Oh, right. I don't see race.
millennials are also known as Gen Y, Generation Y.
Yeah, I hate that name.
As the first generation to grow up with the internet, millennials have also been described as the first global generation. The generation is generally marked by elevated usage of and familiarity with the internet, mobile devices, and social media. A 2015 study by Microsoft found that 77% of millennials said yes to the statement, "When nothing is occupying my attention, the first thing I do is reach for my phone," compared to just 10% of those aged 65 and over. Which, not surprising, but
Yeah.
when you hear it, it's still like, I fit into that.
Yeah.
Not happy
Me
about
too.
it, but like if my mind's not occupied with something, I'm just like absent-mindedly grabbing my phone and just,
Yeah.
it's a problem.
Agreed.
Okay. Millennials have been called the unluckiest generation because the average millennial has experienced slower economic growth since entering the workforce than any other generation in U.S. history. The generation
Wonder
has
fucking
also,
why.
the generation has also been weighed down by student debt and childcare costs.
Shit sucks.
By the 2020s, 39% of millennials had at least one bachelor's degree compared to 25% of baby boomers. So we're smarter than them. That's why they hate us.
Just better educated.
Across the globe, young people have postponed marriage or living together as a couple. Millennials were born at a time of declining fertility rates around the world and are having fewer children than their predecessors. In the developed world, young people of the 2010s were less inclined to have sexual intercourse at all compared to their predecessors when they were the same age. So young millennials are having sex less, Alex. Why? Why is that? Why are you having sex less,
Because we're
Alex?
fucking weird. I was a weird millennial that never had sex.
I still haven't had sex. What's it like?
Yeah.
It just seems very warm, wet,
And icky.
and icky. I don't want it. Okay, millennials across the world have suffered significant economic disruption since starting their working lives. Many faced high levels of youth unemployment during their early years in the job market in the wake of the Great Recession, and suffered another recession in 2020 due to the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
All right, key events that this generation lived through in their formative years. You had the OJ trial, OJ Simpson,
Yeah.
the death of Princess Diana, the Columbine shooting, the first of 20,000 shootings since then in America.
The fucking beta test for the future
beta
of America.
test. That's a great way to put it. Y2K, remember that?
Oh yeah, all the
scare?
computers are gonna fucking fry. That was fun.
Think about, computers had only been in people's homes for like 10 years tops at that point, as far as like the general public. And people thought they're going to be obsolete starting in 2000. All the records are going to be gone. Now look how long we've gone since then. You don't hear about shit like that anymore.
No.
Obviously 9/11 was huge for us. Saddam Hussein was captured. George Bush in the wars in Iraq.
Yeah.
Hurricane Katrina. Election of the first black president, Barack Obama. Notable millennials, you have Mark Zuckerberg.
Is he?
Lady Gaga. Bart Simpson.
Okay.
And the young actresses from Two Girls, One Cup.
Wonder how they're doing these days.
Probably pretty shitty.
We've got a few millennial politicians out there that are doing some good stuff. Got a few shithead ones that aren't. AOC, she's a millennial.
Yeah, no, I love AOC. But millennials is weird because I feel like we're a left-leaning generation,
We are.
but we have a lot of extremists on the right that come out of our generation. I think a lot of that has to do with that they hate the woke culture. It's a pushback against consensus. Most people in their generation think one way, and they get annoyed at that, so they push back.
Yeah.
This is my
I think the internet
expertise.
also has a play in that too.
And Mark Zuckerberg.
You know, back in the day, if you have these thoughts, you don't really have a community to share them with. But now, whatever thoughts you have, you can find a whole community online that has the same thoughts, and you can build your own echo chamber to get these fucking obscure, radical viewpoints.
We should have just not had the internet. Instead, we should have just focused all our attention on more cars.
More cars. Wider highways and fucking more parking lots that aren't generating any tax revenue for your cities and bankrupting your small towns.
Whoa.
Yes.
The baby boomers, they're number one, Alex.
Yeah,
and
we knew
I know
it.
you've been saving your rants, so I'm expecting big things here.
I'm not ranting today, I told you.
They were born between 1946 and 1964. Our parents are baby boomers. There were 76 million births in the U.S. in this generation. It makes it the largest generation in the history of the world. 21% of the living population today are baby boomers. The term baby boom refers to a noticeable increase in the birth rate. The post-World War II population increase was described as a boom by various newspaper reporters. What they mean is people were coming home from war and fucking booming each other nonstop till a bunch of babies came. In the West, boomers' childhoods in the 50s and 60s had significant reforms in education, both as part of the ideological confrontation that was the Cold War and as a continuation of the interwar period. For young people, life was vastly different from what their parents experienced during the interwar and war years. Economic depression, mass unemployment, war, and chaos were a distant memory. Full employment and material comfort were the norm for baby boomers. Such a drastic difference in outlook and experience created a rift between the generations. That's what you said earlier. The baby boomers had it good.
They had it fucking good. Their parents were dying in the wars, fucking succumbing to disease, and like going through all this shit to make this perfect idealized life for their kids. And they did. They succeeded. And their kids had it fucking made. They had good schools, good education, good job prospects, good income. Fucking billionaires were getting taxed at like a 90% tax rate. So government was well funded. We had social services. We had all sorts of stuff for them. Social Security was booming. Like everything was great. And they fucking pulled the ladder up behind them. And just like, you all have to fucking work for it. And now they're just talking about
they'll tell you that they had to work for it.
Yeah, they'll tell you they pulled themselves up by the bootstraps.
Yeah.
They inherited a historically 1 in a million great economy and just wanted to hold on to as much wealth as possible and fucked it up for the younger generations. And still the largest voting bloc, so there's nothing we can really do about it.
Obviously, we're not speaking. There are people in the baby boomer generation, obviously.
Yeah, there's good boomers.
Yeah, that they did work hard and they did do all that and they had it rough, whatever. But by and large, as a generation, generally speaking, they had it very easy compared to their parents.
Yeah.
But that wasn't enough for them because the youthful proponents of counterculture known as the hippies disapproved of the modern world so much that they sought refuge from it in communes and mystical religions. During the 60s and 70s, a large group of them could be found in any major European or American city. This is from Wikipedia. Male hippies wore long hair and grew beards, while female hippies eschewed anything that women traditionally wore to make themselves attractive, such as makeup and bras. What?
Hell yeah.
Makeup and bras, okay. I think they still wear bras, but...
You know what's interesting about hippies?
Tell me.
The hippies of the old days, right? The early hippies. I'm sure most of them are fucking like Trumpers now. Like you think of them as like a left-wing counterculture, but...
In the U.S., radical activists of the 60s prompted a backlash by religious leaders who advocated a return to basic family values. Evangelical Christians grew considerably in numbers in the 70s. This movement became politically active, resulting in the fusion between Christian fundamentalism and neoconservatism in the late 70s and 80s and the election of Ronald Reagan as president.
Interesting. Is that kind of inferring that like the fusion of the counterculture with the Republican Party sort of came around the Reagan timeframe?
My interpretation is that the hippie movement prompted such a backlash from society as a whole, because the hippies were just a pocket of the they're not everybody in the generation. And so people pushed back so hard about family values and Christian fundamentalism that is what eventually kind of propelled conservatism to be such a huge part of the boomer generation, and ultimately Reagan became president.
Right. Conservatism mixed with evangelical kind of viewpoints.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because conservatism, republicanism, and Christianity, they all go hand in hand.
Right.
If you're a Christian, you're a Republican 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
If you're a Republican, you're a Christian. Don't meet many Christian Democrats or Christian liberals.
They exist, but
they exist.
They're not as common.
Yeah. All right, so shifting gears, in the U.S., the Food and Drug Administration in May 1960 approved the first contraceptive pill, colloquially known as the pill, a drug that has had a huge impact on the nation's history. Imagine if that pill was never invented.
Right.
Man. Political attitudes towards human sexuality altered dramatically in the late 60s because of young people. The heretofore mainstream beliefs on issues such as premarital sex, birth control, abortion, homosexuality, and pornography openly challenged and no longer considered automatically valid. In other words, for all of history, the majority of people thought the same way about premarital sex, homosexuality, pornography, abortion. Starting in the late 60s, that started to splinter. People started to challenge conventional wisdom on those things. And Alex, I know you've never challenged pornography. That's always been a key tentpole in your life.
Yeah.
Marriage in many developed countries became much less stable in the 80s when baby boomers were married. In the West, this manifested in rising divorce rates. Among Americans aged 50 and up, the divorce rate per 1,000 married persons went up from 5 in 1990 to 10 in 2015. So doubled for baby boomers.
Yeah, I even heard that the boomers even have a higher divorce rate than millennials.
Yeah. And millennials are also getting married less.
Yeah.
Which is a separate statistic because it's all percentage based. But yeah, it's...
Those of us that are getting married tend to stick with it.
Yeah.
The old ball and chain. Am I right?
I'm her ball and chain. For sure. Around the world, people are living longer than ever. Global life expectancy has increased from 47 years in the 50s. God, that's crazy. 47 was the life expectancy in the 50s to over 72 years in 2016.
Jesus.
As a result, the number of people older than 60 years of age has gone up over the decades, as has their share of the population. And in 2018, though, 29% of people aged 65 to 72 in the U.S. remained active in the labor force. This trend follows the general expectation of Americans to work after the age of 65. And one more thing, and then I'll pause. In the U.S., the sheer number of baby boomers put a strain on programs like Medicare. According to the American Medical Student Association, the population of individuals over the age of 65 will increase by 73% between 2010 and 2030, meaning 1 in 5 Americans will be a senior citizen. So we're already struggling to keep up with all the fucking old people that won't die in this country, and it's going to increase 73% over the next...
Dude, we're going to hit a crisis eventually, probably in the 2030s, when all these baby boomers need to be in nursing homes, but we're not going to have space for them. We're not going to have staff for them. These nursing homes pay shit wages for a shit job. Like, people don't want to do that work, and yet you're going to have all these boomers that need this care. Something's going to have to give, and I don't know what. And I'm kind of afraid that, I don't know, we're going to see some awful crisis of homeless boomers that don't have anywhere to go, Or
the boomers are rising up against us.
I mean, more often than not, it's probably going to fall on us, and our generation is going to have to take care of them, and they're going to move back in with their kids and probably pass some law that you can't abandon your parent or something. I don't know.
This would not solve everything, but I think one thing that would mitigate this issue is assisted suicide becoming a socially accepted thing. Because part of the problem is people live and they hang on so long. I mean,
this is going to
sound harsh, but their contributions to society have been over for years. And like you said, they are miserable.
Yeah.
If they're willing and able and of sound mind to make the decision, or even if they're not, and someone, I don't know, it's just whatever. I'm not an expert in this shit, but I think if you have a system for assisted suicide, God, imagine how contested that would be, like abortion and shit is today. But if you could get that to be a social norm in this country, it would solve some of this problem.
It could help, certainly.
All right. Key events during the formative years of boomers. You had the Cold War, Cuban Missile Crisis, the assassinations of JFK, MLK, You had the Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, Charles Manson, the moon landing, Watergate, the death of Elvis Presley.
Watergate. That was nothing compared to the shit that Trump has been doing. And
I
yet
know, right?
people these days are like trying to push it off to say that nothing happened, right?
Imagine if Watergate happened and Nixon ran for president again and won.
Right.
Because that's about to be what we're facing.
Oh, well. Speaking of presidents, 4 baby boomer presidents.
Yeah, let's see. We got Obama, Bush Jr., maybe?
Yep.
Clinton.
Yep.
There was Clinton. Obama came after Bush. Bush came after Clinton. Clinton came after Bush Sr. Bush Sr.'s not a boomer, is he?
Senior was greatest generation. You're
Biden.
missing the guy we've been talking about.
Biden.
No,
Trump.
Biden's
Trump.
silent. It's Trump,
You're
yeah.
right. Fuck, Jesus.
Just barely. He's barely a boomer. He's almost a silent.
Yeah, but there's nothing silent about his ass,
Yep.
unfortunately. Well, some notable baby boomers I have here, in addition to those presidents. Liam Neeson.
Oh?
Oprah Winfrey, Sir Mix-a-Lot, and Alex's parents.
Barely.
Are they barely? What are they, Gen X?
My mom would have been born in the last year of boomers.
All right. Well, Alex, you ranted, got right up to the line just enough to satisfy me.
Yeah, no, I told you I wasn't going to rant today, and I didn't.
You're right.
I've been calm and cool. If you check my heart rate monitor through this whole episode, it's just been steady as a fucking rock.
Well, news flash, I have been monitoring your heart rate this entire episode, and you should probably see a specialist because I've been seeing some weird up and
that would
downs.
be a fun addition to this episode, is just monitor our heart rates through the episode and like put it on a graph as to like what we're talking about.
They
That'd be
should have
fun.
done that for us when we did the largest airlines episode. We would have had some high heart rates.
I had some things to say for sure.
Yeah, and the walkable cities. It's always the list you bring. That's what you get worked up over.
I know how to work myself up.
Yeah.
But today, steady as a rock.
Steady and as smooth as a rock, Alex. That's smooth bum bum of yours. Let's go back through the top 7 largest generations. This is ranked by the total number of births in the United States. Number 7, the current generation, Generation Alpha, 2013 to current day and still going. Number 6 is the silent generation, people born between 1928 and 1945. Number 5 is the greatest generation, people born between 1901 and 1927. Number 4 is Generation X, people born between 1965 and 1980. Millennials come in at number 3, which is people born between 1981 and 1996. At number 2, you have Generation Z, 97 to 2012. And number 1, the baby boomers, 1946 to 1964.
Good list.
And I do feel like we should say, as hard as we've been on the boomers today, I'm not going to say we don't mean it.
But it's not representative of the whole, right?
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
We talk about generalizations, but obviously
we're kind of turning it up a little for this episode.
Yeah.
For the sake of the podcast. But yeah, we know that there's good and bad people in every generation.
I've met plenty of good boomers. I've met plenty of bad boomers. And that's how it is.
And Alex, I'd like to see your boomer. So when are you going to bend over and let me see? Okay, Alex, if you were in charge of naming the next generation, what would you name it?
Oh, that's a good one. We went from Gen Z to Gen Alpha.
We had the XYZ and then Alpha. Yep.
XYZ, then Alpha. So obviously you'd think like Beta, but I don't know. I'm kind of tired of that.
It probably will be that, if I had to guess.
But it probably will, But like we weren't called Millennials until the Millennium, I feel like. I feel like we were Gen Y, and then the Millennium happened, and they like gave us a nickname, which I could see happening. What's something, I don't know. It's too late to fucking critically think.
It'll be the Generation Swifties or something. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that, But I think their default is going to be Generation Beta.
Yeah. Well, listener, we want to thank you for giving this podcast a beta test and listening to us right now. This has been the 242nd episode of Tennis Podcast. I'm going to be back next week, episode 243. I'm going to have Dr. Buster with me. In the meantime, let me know what you thought of this episode. Drop me a note on your favorite social media platform. You can follow us at TennishPod. The links are also in the show notes to each of those. And if you enjoyed this episode, please consider / please do it or I'll hurt myself. I'll give myself assisted suicide if you don't rate us 5 stars and leave a review on your favorite podcast app.
Listener, that wasn't a request. You have to do it right now. Like, No, please go do
Pull
it right now.
yourself up from the bootstraps and leave a review right fucking now. I'm not asking again. I'm not
Or
telling
else
again.
Nick is gonna commit assisted suicide
Yeah, legally.
In Oregon.
Is that the only one right now?
It's just Oregon. In Canada.
Canada's always got it figured out. I'm jealous of Canada.
Yeah.
All right, anyway, before we start going off on Canada, nobody wants that. Alex, do you have any final words?
Brad from Canada probably wants that.
Well, yeah, you're right. Let's reorganize our entire lives to serve what Brad might want.
That's what I've been asking for this whole time.
Okay. I think I'm going to end this.
Yeah, please do.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, listeners. Goodbye.
Bye.